All I'm asking is for evidence that he was aware that his signature was being used for this. I actually think this the level of evidence which you want is that this was of his initiative and something he desired to do.
Obviously, I can like some unelected bureaucrats and not like others. I mostly like the policy of the Biden administration, so I'm fine with him having unelected bureaucrats that I like do certain things that they have expertise in, because I also don't want all the executive control to be vested in one person. I do want checks and balances within the executive branch. I want people with expertise making decisions about what they have expertise in.
If in 6 months nothing came of this, then it won't be because of some left-wing conspiracy. It'll be because conservative courts with a conservative DOJ and a conservative apparatus couldn't find anything.
If you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing. It really helps with the algorithm. And make sure to check out the Discord and other social links in the description.
And on that note, let's get started talking about the Autopen controversy and whether it's a thing, whether it's not. If you don't know, the Autopen controversy, basically, Biden's been other places when documents have been signed. Conservatives have said that it's questionable, and we're here to talk about why that is, or if it's anything, or if it's a nothing burger. Let's start with Average Debate Enjoyer. What are your thoughts?
A little questionable. I can see why the eyebrows are raised. There's a little bit of smoke there, but generally at the end of the day, the accusations of fraud, the accusations of elderly abuse. We've had a long conversation about this over the week, so we're probably going to have to kind of slowly rehash it for anyone watching, but I just don't think the accusations have the burden of proof on them, and I'm pretty sure previous rulings and overviews of Autopen allow the president to sign documents like this. As long as Biden says he's on board with them, they're good to go.
I just want to issue a correction because this was done on the Tim Poolcast when we were there. Autopen is not a digital signature. That is DigiSign. Autopen is a physical machine that they have in the White House. Usually they use it whenever like they'll have a memo or something like Obama did. They'll send it to the White House and then they'll use the Autopen there. Or say they have a lot of things like 200 pardons. The president will usually sign the first one and then they'll have the Autopen run through it. But there's controversy surrounding it because of his not being at that location. We don't know.
Yeah. To basically finish it up, basically what I'm saying here is I just don't think that the government has the right to tell the president what color ink to use, if he wants to sign a dick as his name, if he wants to do it over here instead of the Oval Office, or if he wants to do it remotely. I just don't think they have the authority to command that because it's a constitutional duty.
All right. Thanks so much. Adders.
Necessarily have a problem with the Autopen as much as I do the precedent that has been set previously. So for instance, Obama used Autopen while he was on vacation, right? But Obama also issued a written public memo stating his support for this thing whenever it was signed. So I think there's certain steps, and we just haven't seen anything yet. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but if there's some type of memo or something where, they said, oh, he specifically told them yes to sign these things, that would be great. But as of yet, we've yet to see anything like that.
Fantastic. Nonfon.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's fine for presidents to use Autopen, and plenty of other presidents have done it before, and I don't think there's sufficient evidence to say that any of this shit was actually fraudulent or elder abuse. And by the way, if it was a fraudulent signature or whatever, that's already illegal, and I'd be fine with investigating and prosecuting whoever for that, and that would probably make the pardons or whatever void. I think it's horrible that Trump is just saying that these pardons and executive orders are void despite not actually having any solid evidence for it.
Thank you. Now, Rich.
I, for one, would like to defend Trump from these accusations. The fact that the Daily Mail found all these Autopen signatures from his first term. I just think it was very unfair of the Daily Mail to make those kind of accusations, as if the fact that he didn't go through the same clarifications that Obama did. To be fair, Obama, that was the first use of the Autopen, which is why he felt he needed to comment on it. I don't think it's fair to expect Trump to then have to do it in his first term during all of those things that he Autopen signed. And, it's just very unfair to Trump for these accusations to be coming down towards him.
Buckaroo Banshee.
Neither the Constitution nor any statute prescribes a method by which executive clemency shall be exercised or evidenced. That's from 1929. I think the Autopen is fine. That's my take.
Fantastic. Thank you. Pentuple.
So for me, this isn't about necessarily the Autopen, but it's essentially a question of forgery. To me, the signature that the president has is what it represents is the president's consent and authority. This cannot be delegated. When the president signs something himself, that's self-authenticating. That can't be forged. But when you use Autopen, you've separated it from that inherent intent that when the president has when he signs it. So to me, like Abby said, it's a very low bar. All we're asking, and this is an even lower bar than I think we should actually have. All I'm asking is for evidence that he was aware that his signature was being used for this. I actually think the level of evidence we should want is that this was of his initiative and something he desired to do. It's still a problem even if he knows about it and we just went and told him he did it. The problem is that the Autopen is not a delegation of the ability for the president to consent to something, which is required. That's what the signature represents. The Autopen is just a way of accomplishing the physical task of signing it. That's not a way to get around or delegate the intent or the consent of the president. So all I'm asking for here, and Tyler said, this doesn't get past the burden of proof. The burden of proof is one. I think both sides have stipulated that Joe Biden wasn't there mentally. They removed him from the general ticket. So we've got that. Second, the fact that the pardons were written in Autopen suggests that there should be, even if it's verbal, some sort of authority or provided directive for the person who used the Autopen to do that. That's all that we're asking for. So I think it's an interesting question. I think that the fact that the people defending Biden here are trying to just deflect the burden of proof shows that they don't have any good evidence on their side. Because the easiest thing to show would just be one meeting, one memo, one statement ever that he said he wanted to do this. I mean, and these pardons are unique pardons in that they are preemptive pardons. We don't even really know why these people needed pardons. So it's very likely that these people could have just gotten their pardons in. He had no idea. They told him, "What are you going to do about it? You're going to go blow the lid on this whole thing?" I don't think that's a reasonable response. I don't think he's in a position to do that, especially if he's got mental capacity limitations. So to me, it's a question of forgery. It's not a question about the Autopen. I have no issues with the Autopen, but you can't delegate the consent of the president, and that's what I think is of concern here.
Thank you so much. And Premier Katya.
So we talk about Obama as being the first to use the Autopen, but he was actually the first to use the Autopen to sign legislation, which was an extension of the Patriot Act, which sucks because the Patriot Act fucking sucks. But I digress. The actual first use of the Autopen was by Thomas Jefferson after it was patented in 1803. So we've clearly been using the Autopen for a hot minute. And in addition to that, the way that I see it is, we talk about written stuff in addition to that, but we're talking about pardons here. Last year, the year before, it was ruled upon that for pardons, they didn't even need to be written down. Technically, they could be just expressed verbally to another individual, or the president could just declare, "Hey, this person's pardoned, I'm saying it out in the ether," and that would count. So I think, as long as we can assure from him, yes, okay, I wanted that to happen. Awesome. Done deal. Everything else is fine and smooth sailing from there. And I think the burden of proof would be on others.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. Open it up. Yes, sir.
Something also tells me the president could call literally any news station in the world and be like, I didn't approve these signatures, and they would be like, holy shit, and we would find out about it instantly.
That's what I was just about to get to. Pentuple challenged me directly, so I got some fucking notes, buddy. So self-authenticating is implied in the Autopen, and if you call it into question, if there's some sort of dispute over the authentication of the president's signature, what do we have in procedure for that? We take it to the court. And who is the witness? Who is the person whose power is being usurped, whose signature is being taken? It's Joe Biden. Do you think Joe Biden's going to testify against his own party? I absolutely do not. I think Joe Biden's
but he's going to have to testify. He's going to have to testify to when he gave the directive or something. He's going to have to give some sort of answer about when this was approved, about when they discussed it, how he granted the authority. If he can't point to when or how he granted the authority, that is an issue, right? I mean,
that is something we talked about.
How does this end up in court? Do you think that there's any way for this to end up in court other than somebody who has one of these questionable pardons getting charged with something, and then they challenge their defense is that they have a pardon, and then that's how we address the issue? I haven't thought about it. I'm just asking this out loud.
I mean, if they actually had evidence of forgery, they could just indict the person who did it.
Yeah,
I'm just are they challenging the revocation of the pardons? So.
Well, maybe they could take it in front of the House or whatnot as well, just to investigate and oversight, could take a look into it, just because it had the smoke warranted there. That all being said, though, if Biden's mental state was an issue, we have another process of dealing with that. It's the 25th Amendment. And yes, there was a cover-up. Yes, there was lies, but they didn't invoke the 25th, meaning Biden's power was still intact.
So, Tyler, you bring that up, and that's an interesting comment, because I've heard on multiple panels that from prominent people that are panelists that are, hey, you know what? We're okay with Biden being incapacitated, the people around him, because they're going to push what we want or whatever. And to the conservatives, that's terrifying, right? They're like, oh, hold on. Y'all are saying that y'all didn't actually vote for the guy. Y'all voted for this nebulous group of people who are, what are they? What is the term they've been using for Elon? Unelected bureaucrats, right?
I was going to say, isn't that what gives Elon all the power in the first place?
Right. So y'all are sitting here bitching, about Elon, but y'all literally are saying at the same time, going, hey, we wanted all these unelected bureaucrats in there to run it for. I mean, isn't that like talking out of both sides of your mouth?
No, the difference is the intention behind it and policies
Biden were
behind it.
confirmed by Congress. The people who were around Biden were confirmed by Congress. Elon Musk was absolutely not. So that's a difference that people could make. I mean, I don't think that he was like incapacitated to that percent or that level, especially when he was elected back in 2020, that he was not able to perform any duties. I think that people do like way super upplay his mental state on one side and like people downplay it on the other. I think we're somewhere in the middle of the road. I think that both sides right now are sensationalizing that.
Nonfon, you were saying something?
Yeah, I think there's a difference in intention and different in policy. Like, obviously, I can like some unelected bureaucrats and not like others. I mostly like the policy of the Biden administration, so I'm fine with him having unelected bureaucrats that I like do certain things that they have expertise in, because I also don't want all the executive control to be vested in one person. I do want checks and balances within the executive branch. I want people with expertise making decisions about what they have expertise in. And there's also, this would spiral off, but I think there is a difference in intention in that. I think a lot of unelected bureaucrats in Biden's administration were like genuinely trying to do the right thing, and I just don't have faith that Elon is doing that.
I see.
So, but the executive clerk is the one who typically handles Autopen signatures, and the executive clerk is an appointed position. It's not an elected position. So why would we have a problem with subpoenaing like the executive clerk and having her testify as to under what circumstances she was allowed to use the Autopen? Who told her to use it?
A lot of conservatives I know are like, well, why hasn't the executive clerk or any of these other people like testified like to meet this minimum bar if there was nothing nefarious going on? Like, what's the argument there? Wouldn't it just take like, I don't even think that conservatives, at least on our side, would be like, oh, we need a ton of proof. It'd be like, okay, like for the pardons, if we had proof, like when Trump did the pardons, he came out the next day and goes, I pardoned all these motherfuckers, right? And he's like, maybe he signed the first one, then Autopen did the rest because there's 200 of them or however many there were, right? Like, I'd probably be okay with that if Biden said that, at least as a conservative. But like, would y'all be okay with that if someone was like, if they come out and said that to Pentuple or Abby?
Yeah, if someone testified at Congress and said, hey, look, this directive came to me verbally from Joe Biden himself. I spoke to him, and that's why I executed it. I think that would be enough. But they're not doing that.
I also, just to jump in, I wanted to respond to one of the chavs, Toby and Kenobi, about there's no mechanism to overturn a pardon once granted, or there's no restriction on the use of Autopen. This isn't an issue of the Autopen or about revoking a pardon. It's about suggesting that the pardons were never valid. It's basically arguing it's no different than if somebody just forged the president's signature. That's what we're talking about. The Autopen issue is not really relevant.
This is an issue of revoking the pardons. Trump made it an issue.
No, it's not. It's a question of whether they were valid in the first place.
It's not. He wants them to not be valid, and because
that's the argument. To suggest that this would set a precedent for undoing it. To suggest that this would be a precedent that can allow a president to revoke a pardon is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is we're questioning the validity of it. If the signature was forged, then these pardons are not valid. I don't think anybody would question that. If we had evidence that the signatures were forged,
by the way, if you have evidence of it, indict the person who did it, and then the pardons would be void.
That's the whole argument. That's the whole argument. And like I said, if your argument is that if you think your best argument is to shift the burden of proof back to me, that's not very good for your position. I mean, it would be very easy to show that Biden was just even aware. Like I said, the bar that we've set, the bar that Abby set, is very low. We just need to know that he was aware.
We do for some of them, depending on, I don't know what pardons you think are void, but there are pardons that
I don't think you know.
There are pardons the Heritage Foundation claimed were signed by Autopen, which turned out to not even be signed by Autopen. So So we do there are pardons that we have evidence that Trump.
So we're now finding out that there was that there was an assumption that the Federal Register is reflecting Autopen signatures, because when you overlay one signature over another, they're an exact match, and that indicates that it's Autopen. But the Federal Register actually doesn't show you the signature. What they show is a digital document that has a digital signature attached. So if you were to look at all of Donald Trump's ones too, they all match as well, because people have been assuming that that the Federal Register actually shows you the real signature for the real document, and that's actually not the case. So now we've got to go back and find the physical pieces of paper, and even if something's auto-penned, there is a physical piece of paper, because again, it's not a digital imprint. It's a literal pen.
Yeah.
Similar to the one that Thomas Jefferson used when he did the stereographed signatures that he did back in his lifetime. And so that's what you have to go back and look and see if there's actual ink.
So, Rich,
on
I
the
don't think
page.
there's anybody disputing that. I guess, but once again, how does that take care of the problem that Pentuple's bringing up, which is the idea that there's no paper trail, there's no witnesses saying he signed this. It's sus, even if it is the physical machine. And it's not.
This is why I said that this
digitized
is
one.
unfair to Trump, right? Because just because Trump doesn't have a paper trail for every single auto pen he used in his first term, doesn't mean that we should be invalidating.
But Trump is claiming all the stuff he did. Like there's a difference. Like we don't have it. You don't.
But hold on. First, you said it has to be a paper
He
trail.
was on vacation.
just
I think
not
another
claiming.
piece of it, though, is that he
Did
was
Biden
on
not say-
vacation. That's why people are honing in on those specific pardons. I mean, I'm just giving you that perspective. A lot of people are honing in on those specific pardons because he was in the Virgin Islands, so they know he wasn't present. And we're not even saying like, hey, give us proof of that. It's like, hey, let's talk to the executive clerk and see who gave you permission to go and physically use the auto pin. Why did you execute that? Who gave you permission to execute that? Did it come from Joe Biden? Did it come from someone else? If it came from that person, subpoena that person. Who did it come from? Did it come from Joe Biden? That's what we're asking for. Even if Joe Biden was like tomorrow, like, hey, I knew about this, I authorized this. Like, I think.
Yeah,
that would
I'm
be
just
enough.
saying. I'm just saying we need to generalize the objection, right? So this is how you can solve a lot of these issues, by taking the politics out of it, by simply saying, okay, let's go back and look at every single auto pen, like since the beginning of the 21st century use of the auto pen, which was with Obama, although I've heard some people tell me that Bush did it too. But and go back and ask for the paper trail for each one of those. Like, that's fine. I'm fine with that. So long as we apply it equally. That's all I'm saying.
When
got a
Obama was
question
on
here.
vacation and used the auto
Because-
pin on vacation, he did release a written public memo, and we're not even asking for written at this point in time, but he did release
Right,
it.
None of that's required.
Out of
Right,
respect.
right.
Literally we're giving you the lowest bar.
He was the
Issue
first
that-
one.
You have to know you're screwed.
Like, I think I agree. I agree, just because right now it seems really just like people being upset because it's something Biden did that you can like bitch about. Frankly, that's like what it seems like. So I feel like if we're not,
You
if we're
guys
not
scream
even
about
willing to
constitutional
look at
crisis
things,
left and right all the
if
time.
we're
You don't think
not-
it's a crisis that somebody might have forged his signature?
I think
on
having a
preemptive
that we
pardons?
unanimously
If we're
pretty much
not
agree
willing-
that there
God.
is a
Hold on,
unique
let him-
circumstance for us to actually be a little more
So if
skeptical
we're
about
not-
it.
Let's let
So
Buck
if
Buck
we're
go.
not-
You're not being skeptical at all. You're like, you have no proof. We have plenty of reason to believe that he didn't know about it. It would be like you have one clip of him on CNN, one memo.
Hold on.
Wait, give me why he didn't
Brother.
know about it.
Hold
Y'all
on.
putting words in my mouth.
Yeah. If we had evidence of that,
That is
if we didn't have evidence of that.
We should assess.
All right, hold on. 1 second. All right, let Buckaroo talk, and then we're gonna go to Tyler. Go ahead.
All I said is that I agree. We should assess all.
Don't you agree with me?
uses
Don't
of
you
the
fucking agree?
auto
I'm sorry.
pen. Shut the
Just
fuck
kidding.
up! Oh my god! All I said is that we should look at all uses of the auto pen if we are talking about a crisis of whether or not there's validity in the auto pen itself. We should
No.
look at all uses of the auto pen in the same way that if there was a constitutional crisis from Biden, then fucking look at it. I don't care. It's a constitutional crisis. I think it's fine to assess the validity of all of these different actions. But when you pick and choose whose presidential actions you actually have an issue
No.
with, it
We
comes
agree
across.
We do have that. I didn't. I think
comes
we have a
across-
paper trail.
Validity of
comes
the auto
across
pen.
much
Okay,
less.
I see what you're saying.
About the validity of the auto pen.
About the actual action, and more about the president himself.
Okay. So first,
okay, I'll let you respond, but then I want to go to Tyler. Go ahead.
I don't think that it's an issue about the Autopen, but I do get your point that why are we challenging this use of the Autopen and not applying this to others? But with Obama and with Trump, we do have a paper trail of the authority being granted for the specific uses of the Autopen, as far as I'm aware. If we find other uses, that would also be in question. You can't use the Autopen without having some sort of authority or otherwise indicate the consent of the president to use his signature. When he signs it himself, that's inherent. You don't need any sort of additional indication of consent. The question is, when you use the Autopen, if you don't have that attached consent, the question's open. So you have to have something, anything that shows that he wanted this to happen, that he initiated
I agree
it.
that you've made an argument there isn't obvious consent. I'm not even like pushing against that because you have to be able to, if you're signing it with your hand, obviously you're consenting to do it. If there's a machine doing it, obviously there could be something else going on. I was even thinking what are ways we could make sure that it's obvious this was approved by the president himself? I understand.
Well, it should be a requirement. There should be a logical requirement. I would argue there is. I would argue that there inherently is a requirement.
I think that's fine.
Let's go to Tyler here, but I want to say one thing before we go to Tyler, and then it's real simple. One thing also into this, right, is the president's the most watched person on earth. We have audio logs for almost everything, right? Why can't they just go into the Biden Presidential Library Fund and go in there and break out some of these archive tapes of him issuing these Autopen orders? I'm sure somebody somewhere could do this, and nobody's offered to even do that, and that's kind of suspicious to me. But let's go to Tyler.
I can answer your question real quick for you first, because he doesn't have to. Why doesn't Trump go ahead and provide a list of every single immigrant that was on those 5 planes that got deported instead of an overall manifest of just why they were on the plane, visa revoked or whatever? But he didn't have to, so he didn't do it. Why didn't Biden or Trump go answer Mueller's questions directly instead of provide him a written statement? Because he didn't fucking have to. So you're asking him to go way above and beyond just to alleviate your concerns. And that kind of goes into my first point where I wanted to talk to Pentuple about. The fishing expedition point here. How are you not Fannie Willis in this situation? Because there's no victim here. Nobody's claiming to be a victim. What this is a third-party allegation saying that
got a law degree. I don't know if he is a practicing attorney,
but he's not.
He got a law degree from
What do you mean there's no victim? You're suggesting that there's nothing questionable about the potential that people went in, penned their own pardons, had that signed without the knowledge of the president? What do you mean?
What you're saying
I don't think there's any evidence of that.
I think what you're saying
I'm not asking whether there's evidence of it. I'm saying if there was evidence of it, wouldn't that clearly be something we'd have issue with? We would all agree with that, right? If we know for a fact, hypothetically.
Hold on.
I openly think we should, if we have evidence, indict the person who did it. Indict the people who did it.
What the moon is made out of?
I'll review people.
It is not that ridiculous. You're trying to dismiss it as a crazy premise. If this
unless you provide evidence of his.
Okay. No, nobody don't do it. I'm ready. Okay. Tyler, go ahead. Finish your thing.
Yeah, so that was the first point, is there's no victim in this certain particular case. So in a way, it's similar aligning to Fannie Willis in that predicament. And so, I don't see any legal mandate for Biden to have to show he endorsed these pardons. And I think it's already granted in his pardon power that he endorsed these pardons. And unless we have some reason to go and suspect otherwise, besides just guessing his mental state, which a lot of what you're saying is speculation. If there were proof, absolutely. Let's have oversight look over it. A compromise would be have the House Oversight Committee look over the whole situation and make sure it's all above board. Is that a good compromise?
Why are you acting like there wouldn't be an issue if people got pardons without the president consenting to it?
No one disagrees with that point, Pentuple.
People would be the victim in
Just because it's not like a monetary crime?
He's innocent until proven guilty is the point. Innocent until proven guilty is the point.
Right.
We're going to go to Buckaroo, then non-fine, because I saw that there's hands up. All right, so go ahead, Buckaroo. Go ahead.
It just seems like right now these are hypotheticals we're pulling out of our ass and saying, well, this could have happened. Bro, aliens could have come to the planet in the dark of the night and replaced our president with one of their own. Yeah, maybe that did happen. We should worry about the constitutionality of an alien president.
It was scrolls.
Obviously, there are things that could have hypothetically happened that I would take issue with. But if there is no reason for us to assume that any of these things happened, nobody's coming out and complaining about it. Nobody has even a lick of evidence that any of this has occurred. It does sound like this is just shit you're pulling out of your ass.
No,
No,
you're right. Look,
I mean, yeah.
Wait,
while you're on vacation is
wait.
to release
Hold
a
on, Abby,
memo.
hold on. All right, Nonfon, go ahead.
I was gonna
know
say
you
something,
wanna
like, pretty
respond to
similar.
what he says too.
I'm just saying,
Go
like,
ahead.
I don't think anyone disagrees with you, Pentuple, that if these signatures were forged, that would be a problem. And that is already illegal, by the way, and they should be indicted and prosecuted. Like, I don't think anyone disagrees with you there, buddy. I don't know why you keep saying
Wait, well,
you
hold
don't
on.
think
I want to object to that because I've been told, like, by people, like, okay, I'll use this example. Wick, for example, has told me. He goes, I voted for Biden, and I'm okay if he was mentally incapacitated with the people around him making those. Now, that is fucking terrifying to me as a conservative, and that's terrifying. We should have, Reagan, for example, had Alzheimer's. I don't like the idea of wifey Reagan going and making decisions. I don't like the idea. I know Ico's going to be like, this happened, because it did happen. It's fucking
It did
terrifying.
happen.
Yeah, and it's awful.
But
And
it wasn't
they
just
should
that.
have-
It was that this argument that Wick is making, he stole from the Republicans because that was the argument. You
Sure,
guys,
and they
you
were wrong
whippersnappers
then,
are too
too.
young for this. But it was Republicans throughout the 80s and even through the 90s, in retrospect, trying to say, yeah, but he was surrounded by good people,
Well,
and therefore
I'm
I was
saying
willing to
they
vote
was
for
wrong.
Reagan.
Listen, I'm not of that generation, so them fuckers were wrong. And I'm saying Republicans now are calling this out. And like I'm saying, if it was happening now with Trump, like at least I feel like Trump, the guy goes and brags about everything, right? So we know that he's behind whatever scheme, whether you think it's cockeyed or it's good, we know it came from his head, right? So like, do you not see the problem?
I mean, I explained a little bit earlier, but I mean, one, there are things
He says 2025 was not.
there are things bureaucrats
ahead.
are entitled to do, and things bureaucrats aren't entitled to do. Obviously, I would have an issue with a bureaucrat unelected signing a pardon, which is not within their authority to do at all. And I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with a bureaucrat, doing something that is within their authority, especially if I'm okay with that policy, which I am mostly okay with Biden's policy.
I mean, listen, we can also say, look, let's meet in 6 months and find out what happened, because we have a government where the DOJ is like, a Trump loyalist is running the place. The majority of the Supreme Court was put there by the GOP, like 6 out of 9 even. Like the system is set up to where if in 6 months nothing came of this, then it won't be because of some like left-wing conspiracy. It'll be because conservative courts with a conservative DOJ and a conservative apparatus couldn't find anything.
I can agree.
So
that
we can
would be
wait.
the
We
case.
can say we'll just wait.
I can
and
agree
see.
that if they can find something, it'll be prosecuted. I can give you that.
Yep.
And if they
Yep.
can't find anything, it won't be prosecuted. That's just common sense.
Mhm.
That's just
Actually,
that's
if they can't
just
find
fact.
anything, it might be
Even-
prosecuted anyway. But
What,
yeah.
I guess,
So I have another
So
point
let's-
though. Would you
Right.
say, okay, so say hypothetically we had a high up senator or like the Speaker of the House or something like that that had a conversation with Biden about a specific bill, and he couldn't remember even signing it. He was like, that's not what I signed. I don't think I signed that. That's not it. Wouldn't that at least be grounds to say, okay, let's at least look into it? Can we
I
all
agree
at
with
least agree to that?
No one's
Which
saying
could
don't
be
look into it.
investigated
I think everyone
in
agrees look
specific
into it.
Well, okay, so
circumstances.
that's-
into
I
it,
would-
We
but I
all
don't
agree
think it's
Biden wasn't
unusual.
there, right? He wasn't 100%
No.
there at the very least. He wasn't
okay, this is
100%
It's kind of proven at
there
this
at the
point.
very least.
Well, I'm not going to say he wasn't there
Unique
because of
circumstance.
that. Like, I think that because of that, like, I think the whole thing that Michael Johnson said is a bit like, okay, yeah, he didn't remember signing the exact bill. Okay, yeah, look into it. You can look into it, but I don't think that it's completely beyond the pale that somebody, even Biden, or especially Biden, would not remember the specifics of something that they signed, considering that their lives are so busy. I forget things I did at work a day or two ago sometimes. And my boss goes, hey, did you do that? I'm like, shit, I have to look through my email. And I don't have Alzheimer's. So if you, given his age, okay, and he's he's definitely a little bit diminished, right? That doesn't mean that he's incapacitated.
I get it, but I think it's more of the context, and he was adamant that it was something entirely different, right? He was adamant that like, no, that's not what it does. It's only looking into it. It's only researching it. And they're like, no, it stopped it. And he's like, no, and it was that was the conversation. It was a convincing of, no, this is what you signed. And he thought he signed something looking into it, researching it, not actually doing what it did, which shows at the very least he was misinformed. So maybe we should look into who was misinforming our president.
I want to ask a different question too, and we can explore that. But what about like, okay, so let's just say in this a crazy hypothetical scenario, y'all brought up the situation of just wait, right? I have the concern because we've already started talking about lawfare. Say that
I think Biden was
conservative people think that they're
more right about that
whoever
executive
in
order than
Trump's
Mike Johnson was, by the
decides,
way.
hey,
But I don't
we
know
have
for
enough
sure, so.
evidence to push charges on people for fraud or elderly or whatever they want to defraud the American public, whatever they can come up with, right? Is somebody gonna go, oh, hey, like I feel like somebody's gonna do this surely, but like I feel like is the left at all going to accept the results of that, or even as a trial, or are they just gonna throw their arms up and yell witch hunt? Like because I feel like that's almost guaranteed to happen at this point. They're just not gonna accept the results.
The courts are the courts. So if they do find something, I think it should be prosecuted. And I still believe, even though we have 6 out of the 9 parts of the Supreme Court justice are conservatives, the fact is conservatives have run the Supreme Court since Nixon. So I think we still need to accept what comes down from the courts. So yeah, I think the worst thing that Democrats could do at this point would be to not accept a court ruling. Or put it this way, if we ever get to a point where we can't accept our court rulings, then the American experiment's over. Like we're back to having to have another revolution if that were the case.
I agree with that.
So
100%.
Gibbs, let me jump in on your question as well. So Joe Biden or any president that's mentally incapacitated and we don't actually use the 25th Amendment to remove them from power, I think that's closer to a constitutional crisis, in my opinion anyways, than the president ignoring a temporary restraining order from a district judge. I really think that, like, the president's authority, entire executive branch's authority, stems from him. Everyone else is his subordinate. They should not have control over the say. That is a big issue that people were really thrown under the rug. It was a big issue for Reagan, Kennedy, who was the FDR, and multiple others. I'm with you on that, but at the end of the day, I don't think anyone has the authority to check Biden on his constitutional powers, and one of them is the pardon power. And I don't think anyone has the right to say how he can sign it unless there's clear evidence of forgery.
Yeah.
Yeah, or we invoke the 25th Amendment, which that's something that had to be addressed back there. So right now we have a situation where people are saying, oh, he's incapacitated, he was a vegetable, he's this, he didn't even know what he was signing. Back there, it's like, yeah, I understand, but like you had to address that back then if this was such a huge deal. And if you didn't address it back then, like he has the power
why would you
until
have
you
to
take
back
it away.
Dreaming about it then.
Well, yeah,
But
wait,
that's
yeah.
the
What do
whole
you?
point.
Where
Everyone
was
around
the
him was
25th?
protecting him, and that's
Where's
the whole
the
point.
25th
That's
Amendment?
the point. There's a cover up involved in it, so that's why that makes this a unique circumstance. I would say this would be a unique circumstance. And just for a fun fact, the Autopen was used heavily, apparently, in Watergate. That was just something I found when I was doing a little bit of research, so we could talk about how it can be abused. It has been known to be abused. So it's not unprecedented for us to say, hey, maybe this is a case of abuse, and we should look into it.
Was the
I don't know that
Autopen
that's being
abused or
used-
used for bad, or was it just used for a purpose that was underlying bad? Like if he signed it instead of using the Autopen, would it still be, for a negative purpose back then during Watergate? Because if that's the case, then whether or not it's an Autopen doesn't really matter at all.
I want to examine the other thing you brought up. Hold on, with the point and that it had to be brought up back then. Why do you think that is the case? That it has to be brought up back then? Like, wouldn't it? If you're okay, right? So it's almost like we're arguing about like investigating yourself, right? Whenever Exxon has an oil spill and they go to investigate themselves. So like you're saying, that the Attorney General should have been investigating Biden's cognizency and his ability to do these things while he was also working for Biden. Does anybody actually expect that to be working? Isn't that why like Trump's going in there and doing this? Isn't that to be the argument? Isn't that the same thing that the Biden did when Trump got out of office? Like I don't know how you can argue, well, it had to be done then. Like that doesn't seem remotely the same.
Did, because basically, I mean, given that the pardon power is given to the president under the Constitution, right? And they have the power as long as they are in office and they have the power of the presidency. Now, there's a way to get rid of their power of the presidency if they are incapacitated, and that's through the 25th Amendment. And unless their power is stricken from them via the 25th Amendment, they still have it according to the Constitution, right?
Not
like
even
we
on the
can't.
screen either.
It's like we can't put
Love
people
this
in
guy.
jail
What
until
an
they go
intelligent
through
person.
like or
Dude,
in
watching him
prison
debate
until they go
Pisco
through a
is
trial
gonna
or they
be a
plead guilty.
fucking
Like
shit
we have
show,
to
dude.
go through those steps before we get to that point, right? And we can't go back in time if they were not, removed of duty ahead of that. You know what I'm saying? Because it is the president's duty, according to the Constitution, to do pardons, or not duty, is his ability.
You agree with that, Pentuple, as attorney here?
Right. Yeah. The president. I didn't challenge the pardons. I always thought the pardons were good, but
No. So she's arguing. I was asking her why she's talking.
I was deafened.
The,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I'm bastard over here.
You caught me. You said read the next
I
page.
love
of the
how he
book.
gives you an answer anyway.
The teacher told me to read the next word.
We're gonna press these bastards if you go on my channel, mute yourself. I'm gonna get your ass. All right. Listen, that's how it works. No. So we're asking. I'm asking.
To get in the call, by the way.
Okay, I'll move him in. So I'm asking why. Like basically, it matters that it was not prosecuted then versus it prosecuted now. And Conti is arguing that it should have been prosecuted then versus now, and I kind of think.
What do you mean then?
I can throw it
Like immediately?
Biden
had to be stricken of his powers by the 25th Amendment before the pardons for them to take effect. Who is hypothetically not safe for office or not fit.
Think of it this way: when you're firing somebody from your business, you have to like write them up a few times so you can have a record on the record of them fucking up.
This argument makes sense if you're trying to challenge whether Biden's actual signature is valid. But we're talking about whether he even actually signed it. You're suggesting like that we're arguing even if Biden signed it or like signed off on approving the Autopen that we would still be challenging it. But that's what I'm saying. We weren't challenging it until we had this idea that what if Biden didn't know about this? What if people literally pulled a fast one? And that's an open question.
I was arguing
you're going to go along with it.
I was arguing against a point that people have made, some like at least one of whom is here, that Biden, because he quote unquote was at a diminished state, or I remember one thing being said in the chat of a vegetable. That because of that, even if he did authorize it, that would not be kosher. And I said that's out the window because we would have had to address it with 25th Amendment back there before it could be considered.
I don't know that that's true. I mean, that's a claim to make that I'd challenge you to support. You might be right. You might be lucky, but I don't know about that. But I do think the point we're talking about here with the Autopen is not about the Autopen itself. We're talking about, like I said, I think the biggest point to hammer here, especially from our perspective, is that we're not challenging the Autopen. We're challenging what is essentially forgery. So like, if we're right and Biden wasn't even aware that these were happening, somebody forged the president's signature. That doesn't say we're revoking these pardons. It means they were never valid in the first place.
You would have to prove that he wasn't.
You're right. We would have to prove it, and that burden of proof is accomplished because when you have in court, you have self-authenticating evidence like signatures. When your signature, you signed it, that's self-authenticating. An Autopen can be challenged. That puts the burden of proof back on the person who has the Autopen. So now the investigation is whether you have evidence that this person had authority to use the Autopen. That's what the court's going to do. That's why I'm saying if you guys can't provide any evidence of that, and you think the best argument legally is to just shift the burden of proof back to us, you're not in good shape. If we were in a mock trial, I'd be asking the professor for this side.
It's about validating fishing expeditions.
No, it's not. No, because what you're saying about the 25th Amendment thing, this diminished capacity thing that we've said the Democrats have conceded to by removing him from, the only reason that's relevant is because it does suggest that it's possible he was unaware. It's just more evidence in favor of our argument that we could put to a jury. And if you set defer a jury down and you're going to go up to them and say, oh, they have no evidence that Joe Biden didn't know. Good luck.
All right,
but that means
that's what people do in court all the time.
Yeah, good luck. If your best argument is hey, they don't have any proof he didn't know, we're not going to provide a single piece of evidence that shows that he knew, but we're just going to say can't prove he didn't know. Good luck with that argument, genuinely. Good luck.
If you go on a position and you say jump, we're supposed to jump. just because like you say, oh, you need to provide proof of this, you need to provide proof of that. The problem is,
if the court asks you for the burden of proof, then yes, you better provide something better than just dismissing the burden of proof.
Okay.
Wait, what court asked for this in like, you know,
We're going in a hypothetical how this is.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I count. You're gonna go down.
Okay.
You're fired up. I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
Very fired
yeah,
up.
no, that's good. Everyone's passionate. No, but I see.
I have a
This is
question.
what I
Cooking.
So
Sorry.
what Pentuple said is very helpful. I think he's right, and I think that means he agrees with me that if in 6 months or a year, whenever this thing is over, if nothing has been done, there's no prosecutions or any prosecutions have failed or whatever, and the courts have ruled against it. If any of those things happen, then we'll know. Like this would be a knowable thing. This isn't something that we can disagree on, like on into forever.
Prosecutions
Because
of
we have a conservative DOJ, we have a conservative court system, we have all of that. So if what Pentuple is saying is right, that just saying the burden of proof shifts won't work in the courts. If he's right that that's the case, then we will have these things reversed in the future. That's a knowable thing. I think it's rare in these debate panels when we have a prediction such as Pentuple made that's falsifiable, that we can come back in 6 months to a year and say, he was definitely wrong about this thing because this didn't happen. But this is one of those instances where I think he's offering us some falsifiability, which I think will be useful eventually.
Let me throw this out here.
When you say prosecutions, just to get some clarity on that?
Sure.
Sorry,
I'm gonna go say something.
I just want to get clarification. When you say prosecution, are you talking about like, if we don't prosecute anybody for like the forgery, or if we're saying the people that got pardons get prosecuted and we don't deal with it there or whatever? Because like I'm definitely right if we end up prosecuting someone saying Adam Schiff,
I think
and we
Amber's was right
successfully
when she
prosecute them.
said I think Amber's was right when she said if there's something there, it will definitely be prosecuted.
You're right. I mean, it's very possible nothing happens, and this is all stuff. Biden's team right now, I'm sure, is searching for some sort of evidence that he was aware, initiated, or had a memo, or something like that.
Their arguments for sure.
Right, but also it just seems like one's got a way stronger argument based on the evidence that's out there right now.
My larger argument is that we should take whatever it is that we decide to do and make this a precedent going forward, so that it applies to all presidents.
I agree. I think that the Autopen inherently requires additional authority to be used, and I think that that's inherent. I think if we have to establish that in the same way that the Democrats felt we had to establish the whole symbolicism of January 6th signing, then we have to do that. But it should already be something that we've already understand is required with the Autopen.
Right?
I want to move this.
The point is that the Autopen is
always needed to be required, but now in modern day and age may need to be required. Right? It may not have always been historically necessary, as people couldn't travel as often, but it may be necessary now, and we should use this as a precedent if it goes forward.
To have a signature for a pardon?
Let me
to have that when the Autopen is used, you have to have an authority with it.
I want to stop.
Okay.
I want to move this a little bit. Let me just move this a little bit because we're getting like 13 minutes on this topic. Then let's switch to the other topic. Now that Ollie is here, Ollie, are you here? All right. Well, he'll be here. Okay. Anyway, so I'll move this a little bit. Let's just say worst case scenario, right? It ends up the Republicans are right. They decide they're going to go take it to trial, and there's charges pressed. People are charged. People are convicted. Let's just say, what does that mean? What are the ramifications for this other than convictions for people? Does this mean legally that the pardons are valid? Does this mean all the executive acts are undone? Like how much of the Biden administration is undone by this, and like what does that look like for America legally? What are we thinking? What are our thoughts on that?
Well, voiding like executive order would be probably no different than him just revoking it himself. I mean, in practice, the pardons are a little different because since these were preemptive pardons, now the question is whether they can be investigated. Say someone they open an investigation into Adam Schiff, does that get shut down immediately? Those are the kind of questions I guess that they can challenge with the whole pardon thing. But ultimately, I think the question will probably arise after a prosecution begins for one of these people who are supposedly pardons, and then they will argue that they have a valid pardon, and that will become that could go all the way up to the Supreme Court, I guess. But I also, at the same time, do think that the legal argument is very strong that an Autopen is not self-authenticating in the same way that a signature is, and it requires some sort of additional authority for someone to use the president's Autopen. When you're granted the Autopen, it's not like the authority comes with that pen. You can use it for whatever you deem necessary. The president can't say the chief of staff has the Autopen. He can do whatever I'm granting him the right to do it. You are granting very specific like approvals to use the pen for your physical signature, because the president's signature means nothing if it doesn't mean literally the consent of the president, right? Not the chief of staff, not nobody else, the president. It's the president.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, though, because, I mean, I get that the pardons are like one of the big ones, right? I guess that invalidates them. I guess that would open them up to prosecution. Like, that would be legal theory. My bigger question, I guess, is because some of the executive orders have been alleged to be Autopen. Are we undoing, like, massive acts of executive orders?
I would imagine most of those have already been undone by Trump.
He's already been able to do it. Why would have he just already done it?
On day one, he was probably like, bye.
He did.
Bye on day one.
I've been reading through them. He revoked hundreds of executive orders.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he said he was going to do that. Like, I'm getting rid of all of them from day one. So presidents revoke each other's executive orders all the time. Every new administration does.
Can I jump in? I think we're getting a little.
Okay.
I think we're. I'm really trying to make this argument the whole night. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. So, what you keep arguing is the burden of proof is on us. In a sense, you're right. Where it's not self-authenticating in itself, there is some argument there, but we also have the president, who we can just ask, or his staffers, or witnesses, or other people.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that's the point we've been making, Tyler.
There are, by the way, the person who came forward to the New York Post and said that that he took unilateral
You're explaining
action.
how you're going to meet the burden of proof. Yes.
There were other staffers who refuted that claim. So
no, we don't. We'd say it was Autopen. Was it Autopen? Was it the president's wedding signature? Or was it Autopen? If it was Autopen, then now you need to provide authority that granted the use for that Autopen. That's a whole.
So what I'm saying
let me make a point. Please let me.
Well, technically, yes. Yes, you're right. Yes.
Let me make a fucking sentence.
You can make a sentence, and then I want to have Ollie come in here and introduce himself since he was late. But go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, man, you guys are yelling over me tonight. So I'm looking at the rules. The rules that were made. First, we have an OLC legal opinion from 2005, George Bush saying that the president is fine to make these signatures without a paper trail. That's perfectly fine. All he has to do is verbally approve it. So there's no requirement for Biden to keep a paper trail in the first place.
We set the bar low enough.
That's the only thing I can find on it.
That's actually not true, because there is a paper trail.
Beat the fuck out of you, Tyler.
There is a paper trail left, and it's the transcriptions of the audio logs of the Oval Office and all the other places the president's at. So there is transcribed physical paper copies that people can look up for this kind of thing. So even your argument there is out the window.
We didn't even
let's go to I know we didn't even answer that. Let's go to Sociologic here. Real quick. I was real unbiased moderating what I just did there. That's what we do. Real fair, biased moderating. Like anyway, well, at least we admit when we're on that. At least we admit when we're on that bullshit here. Go ahead, Sociologist. Tell us who you are, what you do. Give us your Autopen thoughts, real fast, since we're about to switch topics.
Ooh, all right. I go by Sociologic, 2 L's. I join people's streams and yell at them, and then they yell at me, and we call each other idiots. It's pretty fun. Autopen, real quick. I mean, personally, I didn't know we could auto-sign things at all. I don't think any president should have auto-sign at all. I don't know if that was a point that was brought up, but if we do, yeah, you should be able to check if the person authorized that Autopen usage. That's my input so far. Yeah, that's my input so far.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's a good thing. He brings up a good point. Should we allow Autopen at all? Who thinks we should?
Sorry, I like the Constitution.
What was the question?
Maybe I'm pro-Constitution.
Tyler's in character tonight.
The Constitution
is like
I'm gonna beat the fucking shit out of Tyler.
Yeah,
How do I tame
There's
something?
like-
Do I get
Signing
my
like-
Grand old
Hold on.
Constitution, just American Sharia, baby. Woo!
What was the question just now, Gibbs?
Should we use
who
Autopen?
is in favor of Autopen being used at all? Like, I mean, not legally, just are we fans of it as a...
Oh, I think Autopen's fine. I have no issues with Autopen.
Nah,
So nobody's really...
Ollie cooked as soon as he got here. He nailed the point. It's literally just, did you have authority to use it? It's about, forgery. This isn't about, the process of the Autopen, using the automatic signature.
Once free, the delay will begin.
But you're not going to trust
simple.
the authority because it's... But here's the thing. We're not going to trust the authority right now because it's Biden, and everyone was like, well, was he even mentally coherent enough? They could just convince him to be mentally coherent enough right now.
But here's the thing, we have such a great argument when you guys removed him in the general election. You guys conceded that. You guys conceded that so strongly.
amendment.
Well, who's you
What is
guys?
the 25th Amendment?
You didn't 25th Amendment him, but you might as well have, as far as the nomination was
Oh, come
concerned. You
on.
did.
All right,
In
that's fine.
spirit, you 25th that motherfucker. Like, let's get
What is
real.
an
Let's pause
What
this
is an
way.
election?
Moving on.
What is an election?
What is an
Let's-
election? Something you
Hold on,
want to
we're
win that has to do with popularity, right? And has to do with how people think that a person's fit to lead for the
Okay,
next.
how do you typically? All right, let me ask you petty questions. How do you typically get a general election candidacy? Do you typically have to win the primaries? Typically, right?
Well,
Yeah,
how does that usually work?
primaries.
Yeah, how does that usually work, Katya? How does that usually work, Katya?
Okay, hold on. All right, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this debate.
It's like
We can debate
50-50.
that.
Bernie didn't get either, right? The Democrats don't really
yeah.
care about who wins a primary.
This
We can debate that a different day. All right, let's move on. Let's move on here. Let's move on
Trump
here.
didn't win
Okay,
primaries in the
okay.
20s either.
Right,
So.
which is
God
why
damn
it's
it.
actually.
All right, I'm gonna mute everybody. All right. Damn, y'all are real fired up today. Okay, so we're moving on. Let's start with Tyler here. Well, let's get closing thoughts. Tell her where everybody finds you. We're like coming close to the end here, and then closing thoughts on everything that we've covered.
Average Debate Enjoyer on YouTube and Twitch. Average Debate Enjoyer on Twitter. That's it. Yeah, I got it right. Closing thoughts is just shit I didn't get to. Trump did not have to, his argument is he did not have to follow the rules set forth for him on declassification because they interfered with his constitutional duties, obligations. And I would argue that Biden has a very similar argument here. Nonfon and I were talking about this in DMs. I think we're going to try to continue our specific niche argument tomorrow night. If anyone's interested, is that cool with you? You didn't answer that, but I think we were just like your final answer. But otherwise, everything I said is right, and that's just, the only thing that matches my intellect is my empathy. So sorry, everybody, just don't try to compete, and you won't be disappointed. Have a good night.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Abers.
Yeah, I think in closing, just to touch on the Autopen thing, I think as long as you can provide some type of evidence, even a person saying, yes, Joe Biden told me to do this, that would be plenty sufficient and all of us would have no problem with it. So that's, I think, where we've kind of landed. I think investigation is a little warranted based on the extenuating circumstances that clearly we've all conceded that his mental capacity was diminished. At the very least, he could have been taken advantage of without his knowledge. So that's where I land on that. And if you work 40 hours a week, I don't think you're lazy by any means. So keep up the grind.
Fantastic. Buckaroo.
Yeah, the Autopen incident, I feel like it's kind of silly. I understand the complaints. I don't think they're all nonsense, but personally, I'm not that invested, I have to admit. I think for the Autopen, as long as we find approval, approval from the president, then I'm all good. I do think there should be some sort of verification process for the future. It's kind of wild to me that it's just like whoever has control of the pen can just sign shit. Like it's kind of insane to me that we don't have like an already established procedure on that front. I feel like the government's just technologically brain dead in like every way possible, and there are so many things that could resolve this issue. I don't think if you work 40 hours a week that you're lazy. I think obviously if you want to like get ahead, working more is respectable. If you want to work 60 or 70 hours a week, go ahead. But I think if you're working 40 hours, that you should at least be able to survive. That's my main position. You can find me on X, on Blue Sky, YouTube, Big Papa Buckaroo.
Fantastic. I got Rich.
I think the lesson of the day is universalizability. So if you're going to create a rule for a specific political situation you find yourself into now, then I agree with you. I'm fine with it. Just then apply it going forward to everybody. That's true with both of these topics, right? So on the Autopen thing, I think one of the reasons I find that people start yelling as soon as I start saying something like that is because they want to create a rule that they can apply to the person that they don't like, but they don't want to then apply that to their own guy. Let's create universalizability generalizable principles and apply that all across the board. As far as the second topic, it's the same thing. If you're going to create this rule for people at the bottom of the economic system that they have to work 60 hours a week or they're lazy, fine. But if you're an heiress, if you're Paris Hilton and you work 0 hours a week, well, then you're lazy too. And so we should apply the same standard across the board. Either you're lazy at 40 hours a week, and you're also lazy at 0 hours a week, or it's not true for either party.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely have to do this one out over more in depth soon.
Yeah,
we'll figure that out because that's a terrible take. I just want you to know that I think it's a terrible take. But
Proverbs and Psalms versus the Book of Gibbs. Okay, that's the real debate. It's Gibbs versus Jesus. Okay, that's the debate we need to have coming up next week.
And the Lord's he works in mysterious ways. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, ways to contradict his writing. Yes.
Yeah, Biden's deep state over Trump's chaos any day of the week. Easiest decision ever. And I mean, look, I don't really care if we define someone working 40 hours a week as lazy or not lazy or whatever. But I think welfare is good and should be distributed to people who need it. If you want to watch me, I stream on YouTube, or YouTube, Twitch, and Kick, Nonfon on YouTube, Nonfon420 on Twitch and Kick. Go watch my debates on YouTube as well. They're cool.
Thank you so much, Sociologic.
If you work 40 hours a week somewhere and your employer doesn't pay you enough to live just, a livable life, I think you should steal everything in the store. Do it well so that you don't get caught. And then make sure that you can, you want the resell. So to be good at stealing, that's the ethical. You
need to steal for at least 60 hours a week.
Well, you don't even need to steal things to resell. Okay, some things you just steal on principle. Okay, I took handfuls of UPS.
It is the ethical good.
That's California's philosophy. That's
for all my fun takes. You can catch me at Sociologic with 2 L's. I am not a shower caddy. Fuck you, Gibbs.
You see, was that on purpose or was it not? I couldn't resist. Katya.
Basically, as for the Autopen, I think that whether or not the Autopen was used properly or improperly is more of an internal issue. The real issue, as for the pardons, is whether or not Biden authorized it or not, considering that a pardon technically does not have to be written down in writing and signed if we're going to use that standard that was talked about and ruled upon, then, I mean, that's the main situation. So if we can provide evidence that he did not authorize it, I'd say that's mega fucked up, but until we see that, I don't know what to tell you. As for the second thing, I think that people who work 40 hours a week are not lazy. If working at or under 40 hours a week makes you lazy, then it sucks for me because I'm technically mandated to be lazy by the fact that I have issues and also the fact that I'm in school, so that sucks. But I think that having a good work-life balance does allow people to, improve themselves, like, being in school or having a family and stuff like that. And I think that people should be more economically literate, which is it's a hard goal to get to, but that should be super, super encouraged because then people will be able to do more with, less if they're not wasting money on stupid shit. And they will be able to better themselves by going to school, going to trade school, having a family, this, that, and the third. And also, I think that, employers who have a bunch of people on welfare are just passing the buck along and they should just be taxed more anyways. Bye.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Pentuple, who is going to be with me on Monday on Wix when we're going to be discussing Autopen further.
Yes.
Apparently.
Nice.
So I don't know if y'all know this, but Pentuple and I are actually going to be hosting tryouts for Monday because apparently I need to find the right strongest warrior against Autopen. And I told them it was me, and they laughed. So we're looking for another one, and Penn and I get to decide who that is. And if I don't feel anybody's up to snuff, go fuck yourself. But go ahead, Pentuple.
Wait, you mean Autopen?
Autopen. You see what I did? Nice.
So I guess just to give my closing on the two topics, I'd say the Autopen issue is really not about the Autopen or about revoking pardons. It's about the forgery and it's about the authority of the Autopen. Even with what Katya's saying is true, we accept that pardons can be declared verbally. We still don't have that. So now that would have to be provided. And, maybe that's it. Maybe that's how this outcomes. Maybe Katya has a good point here. Maybe we get to the end of this and they go and they say, oh, well, Biden declared it in some form. I don't think we have that, but as far as the question about the pardons, autopens are just simply not self-authenticating, and they require some sort of authority provided. I think that will be established by the court as an existing rule. I don't think we need to establish a new rule. I think that it's not self-authenticating in court. The burden of proof will go back to whoever used the autopen, and that's we'll see how the court settles with it. And then regarding the like financial livelihoods and stuff, my realistic only comment is that I do believe that generally people get what they deserve. They get out what they put in. I know it's not a perfect correlation, but I think it's strong enough that I don't complain. I think that generally speaking, if you work hard, you'll get good out of it, and if you don't, you won't. And some people think they're working hard and they're not really. Some people think they're responsible and they're not really responsible. And some people lie to themselves. I think it's all very personal. I think that generally speaking, though, in my experience, the people that I know that work really hard, see benefits from it, and the people that I know that don't work really hard, they suffer for it. So the correlation's strong enough. It's not perfect. Some people have really bad luck.
All empirical evidence,
I do think that generally speaking, you shouldn't waste your time in any sense.
Your parents' income
I don't know if I agree with Gibbs that it all has
income.
to be some sort of like income-driven pursuit. I like passion projects and other stuff like that.
He would just say anecdotally, I know people who work hard.
Just to wrap that up, generally people get what they put in.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. We do have a couple of announcements real quick. Friday night tomorrow, we're going to be going live about 7:30. We're going to be doing community night. I think we're playing Escape the Backrooms. Monday, we're going to be on at 5 o'clock on Wix. So that's what I was talking about with me and Pentuple. And then at 7 o'clock, I'll be on Primes. That should be good. And then Tuesday is going to be a really fun one. We're going to have Mel Hisi and Is Justini do an IRL stream with Gibbs. I don't know what we're going to do. Probably wasted shenanigans somewhere. So that'll be fun. Wednesday is going to be interesting. We're going to see what panels we're going to be doing. But I'm looking to probably host 2 panels on Wednesday and on Thursday because we got a lot of people wanting to talk about a lot of things. And why not strike while the iron is hot? So I'll figure out the schedule here this weekend and we'll go from there. But yeah, it's exciting times. I also want to congratulate everybody in the group here that's been part of this group. We've done a lot of things this week across this group and Prime's group. We've been going everywhere. I've seen back-to-back people from here on Wix this week. We had Fabian. He's not here right now, but he's with us in spirit. Debate Destiny last night. Me and Prime won Pentuple. Everybody's doing crazy things. It's very good. It's a rising tide. And then it looks like Tyler's going to be going on the Crucible. So yeah, it's a rising tide.
Recently.
This is the new meta. There's the old and busted and the new meta, and you're turning into the new meta. So right now, we're gonna go raid out to somebody. I guess let's see who we're gonna do. We'll raid out to somebody that we're gonna see on Monday, and just because it's a hate raid,
Tyler and I are going to talk about Autopen as well tomorrow and continue this debate if anyone is interested.
Yeah, good. Get it all fleshed out because I want fucking Johnny Cochran.
I think Prime's streaming if you want to say
Alabama State University.
I might be down.
What was your question? My bad.
All right, bye, everybody. Bye. Okay. Woo.
Bye.
Yes, thanks for everybody coming.
All right, y'all. It was a pleasure. I got
Having
a
me.
dip. Hopefully, we see you next week.
See you on the X, bro.
Peace out. Yes, sir.
That'll be good.
Bye.
See y'all.
See ya. Jesus. Man, that can't wait to watch that double Pisco debate. Jesus, that's gonna be something. What was I gonna say? Oh, I don't know, like the legal. Dude, the whole I was gonna press Pentuple on this, but I didn't really get a chance. The whole like, well, it's not self-authenticating, so you need to provide some standard of proof that motherfucker, like we're not in a court of law right now. If you're making a positive claim, then that burden of proof is on you, brother. Like I understand, like in a court of law, there might, because it's not self-authenticating or whatever, they might have to, in order to avoid the pardon or whatever, like they might have to provide evidence to or I guess not have the pardon avoided. They might have to provide evidence to fucking show it wasn't or they had permission to do this or whatever. But like we're not we're not doing that, right? We're just debate like what is, I don't even know what claim Pentuple exactly is making, but because if the positive claim he is making is just there is reason to be suspicious, then like literally I don't think anyone really disagrees with that. But if his positive claim is that like it's more likely than not that Biden didn't give permission to do this, then like you would have to provide evidence for that claim, and he just does not really have any. But we did it. We did. Anyway, Jesus, I opened. Oh yeah, this too. I don't know how common they are exactly, but there are plenty of fast food workers who do have to sign non-compete agreements. And that's part of the reason why Lena Khan went after them. I was talking mad shit. I'm pretty cool based. My favorite thing is pretending I'm American and saying as an American. Base. Also, this too. God, I understand. I kind of understand this, but it's still fucking it's so fucking dumb. If you were like, these people make it, if I work for $12 an hour and I get this much money, I'm gonna be really upset when the tax man comes around and steals my money. Like brother, who do you think are getting all these welfare benefits that you hate so much? It's the people who don't make jack shit, bro. It's the person you're describing. Like, the bottom 4 quintiles are not net taxpayers, bro. Like, I mean, this is, to be fair, $28, but like, Jesus. Yeah, screw the Democrats. Based. Demon rats, yeah. To be fair, though, also there's still some remnants from COVID. But even before, I mean, they have 2019 here. Even before this, the bottom 3 quintiles did not pay, and then this 4 quintile barely paid anything. But like, also like, I wish I had more time to drill down on this point. But like, holy shit, dude! Like, I'm being progressive. I'm saying we should put the homeless in camps and force them to work. Like, brother. I'm saying give them health care. By the way, only temporarily give them health care. I think Pentuple stipulated that. But Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Like, come on, man. Like, which side do you think is better? Really? Like, Gibbs, please. Pentuple, please. Progressive consumption tax, okay, and redistribution. You know, get rid of some zoning laws. Use a progressive consumption tax to finance the building of affordable homes, okay? And give some of those to homeless people, and also some of the, I mean, if you expand housing supply, you know, that will lower housing prices, obviously. So there will be, I don't think high housing costs is like the biggest driver of homelessness, because, I mean, usually homeless people don't have like any money, period. It's not just that housing is too expensive, it's that they can't like get a job and shit. But I think expanding housing supply would still, you know, I would probably reduce homelessness. But like, just build affordable housing, financed by an efficient tax that is an infinitely better, more just, probably even more efficient society, because homeless people are a fucking drag. They're not being productive at all if they are homeless and don't have anywhere to live and can't get a fucking job. At least like the whole, you know, housing first homeless policy, whatever, lets them get on their fucking feet. So maybe they can actually get a job. Maybe they can actually get an education, like Jesus. But like, I cannot believe that anyone would think that just like putting the homeless people in camps, presumably, also I said like presumably inhumane. I don't know, maybe I should have been like more clear on that or something, but like I think it's quite obvious that it would be less humane to put them in fucking camps and force them to work than it would be to just give them a home. Like I don't know, like I think that's probably inhumane. I think most people would probably fucking see that as inhumane. Like, what the fuck? If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.